What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and today we're going to be making a Wondagurl beat inside Studio One. What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and today I'm going to show you guys how to do this.
This is a Craftmaster production.
All right. First thing I want to get out of the way, some housekeeping. We got a bunch of new subscribers this week. I wanted to say what's up to Loans, Antonio, Rico Bigavelli, Clint Bodine, Justin Richardson, Jeff Alswey, Grim Slider, Platinum Grade, Jacob Martinez, Chris Lyric, Johnny Boyd, Jet Life J, and Russ Plight. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Go ahead and add these guys up. I already subscribed to them. And just stick with us. Let's build this community. Let's support each other. I really appreciate you all. So the first thing we're going to get into as far as building these Wondagurl style tracks, a couple things come to mind when I think about her style. The first is the vocal samples. The second is the speed of the track. And the third is just the 808 patterns and everything. So the first thing, the speed of the track, is like her and Mike Will and Travis Scott. I know she works a lot with Travis Scott, and that may be where some of this influence is coming from. But they really started. They were kind of on the cusp a few years ago of slowing down the tempo of trap. They took it from from 140 down to 126, and now it goes like you've seen in Helium Balloon tutorial. You can make something 87 beats per minute halftime, and it sounds good. So this one we're gonna be working at 126, and as we follow along, keep in mind that we're working at a slower tempo, and that's why a lot of these techniques actually came into being. Also, another thing is, if you look up here, I learned this from someone in the comments. If you click this this question mark and you just hover over certain events and regions, it gives you different key commands that you can use to to do different functions. So that's definitely a pro tip. I appreciated that. But anyhow, the first thing we'll go ahead and start with is the drums. So here we have my my kicks and snare pattern. This is just my typical trap kit that I load up every time. Simple snare with reverb, and then your regular old short release kick. It's the same kick I use on pretty much everything I use with the 808. This is what you have. Well, I made sure to take care of when I was doing these when I was doing the kicks, was I wanted to lay out a simple kick pattern, but I wanted to just put some quick 16 rolls in it. Like, you think about a beat like an older trap beat, like say like Ham or something, right? And you would have these drum rolls that sounded like this. I wanted to get that feeling, but make it a little bit more awkward. And the way that you can do that is, instead of having, three 16-note kicks coming in, just take an eighth note kick that you have somewhere, which is how I usually lay out my drums. Is I'll just click in the eighth notes, and then I'll just go to, like, this one look like this, because this is a pretty basic drum pattern right here. And then just to kind of spice it up and make it a little bit make it a little bit more awkward, because that's a lot of the Wondagurl Travis Scott type of drum programming. Is it's a little awkward, and you kind of think that it's going to go off beat, but it doesn't. That's that Timberland influence in there, so listen to this. And all that is that's just using an unconventional roll. So, again, when you're programming your drums, just to get this vibe, lay out a really simple, start with your grid at eighth notes, lay out a really simple, regular trap drum pattern, and then go back and, like, select a note, and then go to a smaller resolution and do, snap it to the grid. I mean, and you could be creative as you want. Like, you could take this one and make it a 16th triplet, and it'll work. It always works, because all it is that eighth note, but you're stuttering it. So check this out. And it sounds fine. Don't be afraid to experiment. I didn't want to go that route for this song, but I sometimes I'll start a bar with a kick that looks like that. So yeah, and the snares are pretty basic on the three. This was another thing, where I had, this was just originally, this looked like this. This was just this. You've heard that pattern a million times. So all I did was stretch it out, split it grid, and we'll listen to these one more time so you can get the vibe of them. Right, moving on to the 808. This 808, I know I've been using that that one kit in Contact. This is actually my custom 808. It's a preset inside Razor. If you guys have this plugin or Complete, there's a really good sub bass called Punching the Balls. And then all I do, the reason why I like it is there's a limiter on it that you can adjust the distortion of the 808, so you don't have to do a whole lot of processing to get it to sound good. And I also don't have to drag the notes out to do the legato. What I have here, when you just play the 808 pattern, is okay. I've got the 808 sliding. The way that you do this in a synth, if you want to program the 808s with your own synth, is you just find wherever they have a glide or a legato knob, and you just mess around with that until you get a timing that you like. And on the piano roll, in order to get them to glide, you just click in your notes. I started at this D sharp and I wanted it to slide up to here. So you just have to make sure that that you click in, or play your note, while this one is still playing, and then it'll slide like so. So that's another thing that's really important when you're doing, when you want to do this style of beat is the 808s. It's not going to be your typical just boom, boom, boom. You gotta have some slides in there, and you gotta have movement. And another thing that you may notice is I have an 808 hit on the 3 here. Which that's usually where a snare is. I know when I started doing trap, I thought that the 808s just had to be where the kicks drop, which is when I go ahead and make my 808 patterns. That's how I start. I just go into here and I copy my kicks, Control C, come down into here into a new MIDI region, click this lane, press Control V, and then I wind up with these kicks. This is what it starts with. I make sure that I put the first one into the root note of the track, and then I listen from there. And that can work, but it's not going to sound like what you're going for. So you want to, at that point, make sure you have your vertical snap on, and that way you don't have any sour notes. And you just kind of, this is literally what I do. I just go around and kind of move notes, up and down and just keep playing it until I find something I like. That's what I like about Studio One and this vertical snap. It makes it really easy. So the first thing, to kind of get this style as far as the 808 programming is you want to have a bass slide kind of early in what you have going on, and the way that you get a kind of obnoxious slide is by going up an octave, and that's what I did. That's what I did here. If you think about bass in general, if you don't know about playing instruments, or if you haven't worked with a bassist or anything, if you want to sound more natural and musical, bassists typically move up when they go from one note to another. They'll either move up an octave, but more commonly they'll move up a fifth, right? So if you know that, if you want an obnoxious slide, you could go up an octave. And if you want something that's more smooth, you could go up a fifth or lower, and you just kind of keep stuff like that in mind. But when you go up an octave, you get a really extreme sound. So this is what it sounded like. And I didn't want to keep that high bass note playing through, up until I got to this. So what I did is I just went and put a another 808 pluck where the snare is. And that's that's how I wound up with an 808 where a snare is. There's no rules to how you can play your bass lines. Experiment and do what you want. But if you want to sound like modern trap and what's going on, you want to put your 808 hits where your kicks are. And if you need, a little extra something, because you've got a lot of space and some say your sample isn't long enough to hit over here, just drop it where the snare is. It's not going to sound weird. And if you go ahead and you go back and listen to some popular records, you'll hear that it's actually done quite a bit. And if you didn't know that, that could change your 808 programming a lot. So I went ahead and, once we did that, we had these two elements. And if you listen to a lot of, Wondagurl and again, Travis Scott kind of stuff, they'll have like these really, really distorted 808s. In order for me to get a nice sound on this 808, I use I really like this plugin, the Native Instruments driver plugin that comes inside of Complete. It's really useful. I can't say enough good things about that bundle. By the way, if you don't have a lot of plugins and you're getting ready to buy your first plugin and you're thinking about spending the fucking $300 on Nexus because everybody has it. I get a lot of people ask me what to buy. Just don't buy it, man. Save up another $200. It's not going to be the end of the world. You got plenty of time. You're going to be making beats for a long time. You want to get the best package that you possibly can. This thing comes with everything that you need to make music. Nexus just comes with synth sounds. This thing comes with everything. You go on the site and check it out. So I hit it with some distortion first to get this sound. This is without it. Hear how much more present it is. Then I have a Q10. I bought this recently. It was on sale. Waves was having a sale. It was $160 for I think it was 15 legit Waves plugins. A lot of you guys are probably laughing at me like, haha, you pay for Waves, we get that shit on torrent and whatever. I got all of them. But the thing is when you use the pirated plugins, especially the Wave stuff, man, like they wind up glitching up on you, and you wind up with all these great mixes with your Wave stuff, and then you start to try to move this stuff and the GUI starts messing up, and it's just better to go ahead and buy it if you can afford it. And be able to get the updates and, be a registered user and stuff like that. So there's this amazing preset. I know this is an old ass EQ, but the thing about Wave stuff is it was made right the first time. So it has all these presets from, badass mix engineers. And this bass tilt preset, I still don't 100% understand what it does, but listen to the difference from without it to with it. Yeah, it's a big difference. And then I still wanted to get a little bit more a little bit more information in the high end, and this is what I actually bought the package for, was this plugin. This is another old ass plugin, but it's so good, man. So I went ahead and used a Dave Pensado preset from here. You can check it out. And if if you have monitors, you hear that shit makes a big difference. So that was my bass treatment on this 808. Because it's a synth and it was meant to be a sub bass, you got to treat it a little different. But onto the distorted properties of the 808. The Wondagurl, the Travis Scott vibes, that kind of stuff. They have these parts that come in, that are really distorted, and there's a couple different ways that you could do it. So if you have a different way that of, instead of calling somebody out and being like, oh, that's not how they do it, just drop it in the comments and let us all know, man. So, yeah, you can hear how they have like just this little distorted bass synth part. You can automate a distortion over your 808, or you could just play the same notes. And what I originally did to get this was I copied and pasted my 808 track, and then I started just taking, deleting notes until I just found a couple of the accent notes that I wanted to play. I found that these worked really good. And how I got this effect is I just went into Silence, and I want you guys, you know, if you're not doing stuff like this, this is a good exercise to try. I just went into Silence, found, you know, started scrolling through the waves. I found that a square wave looked good. This is not a preset, you know. This is just something that I did. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna save this. Yeah, I just you know, put a couple different voices on it. I played with the detune until I found something that I like. It was literally 3 steps, you know. Turn it to a square, turn the voices up, run the detune, and it came out like this. So now when you play it, you get this sound. I added some external distortion from Driver again. I can't say enough good things about that plugin. It does all different types of distortion. And then I had to because it's a bass sound, I wanted, you know, the distortion sound, not so much the bass of it. So I just went ahead and, you know, put a low pass or a high pass filter on it and cut it out at, you know, about 120, 115 hertz. And that took out, you know, the sub frequency, so that wasn't clashing with my 808. Because remember, when you're doing trap, you want to do as much high passing as you can, because you gotta let that 808 live. You know, then it was just on to making a hi-hat pattern with the Wondagurl type beats. You know, you want to make sure that your hi-hat patterns, you know, it's not just a whole bunch of eighth notes going all the way through. There's a lot of space in these hi-hat patterns. You can listen to this one. You also want to make sure that you add some different pitch effects. You know, all I did was I used, you know, the basic settings on this on sample 1 for this one sample that I used, and it's just a pitch bend to 2 notes, and then all you have to do is you go to pitch bend, and you know, you just start clicking in down here, and it'll go you know, you get it to go up and down. And those are things that you typically want to do towards the end of a bar, you know, where they really stand out and they're obnoxious and you can hear what's going on. The next thing I added was just some percussion on the downbeats, so you can hear these. You know, and just drowned them with reverb. And then every other downbeat, I balanced it with a tambourine sample. And then what I did is I panned both of them, hard right and hard left, drowned them in reverb, and now you kind of get this, you know, this really nice big space from the drums, but everything else is really sharp and dry, so it cuts through the mix really nice, and this adds the space. Listen to it one more time so you could understand the effect. And then added this crash for the hooks in the beginning of the verses, just to kind of, you know, let you know, hey, this is the beginning of something. Okay, easy stuff, right? So the next most important thing with these Wondagurl beats after the drums is kind of her signature style. You hear the stuff on Jay-Z's Crown and the other beats that she's done, is she has this dark sound, and it comes a lot from these really trippy vocal samples. And it's not so much where she gets her samples, and it's how they're treated. Now, if you're looking at the screen, you say this is a Jay-Z sample, right? I was just super random. I wasn't looking for anything specific. All I was looking for was someone singing. Okay, someone not talking. So there's this old Jay-Z song. It's called "The City Is Mine." It's got Teddy Riley on it, who happens to be a huge Studio One fan. I didn't even think about that. That's pretty cool. And I chopped it, and it wound up sounding like this. So in the original song, he's saying you belong to the city. He's singing it, and and it sounds completely different. And the reason why is because when I get a sample and I want to make it Wondagurl style, you just left click on it after you've chopped it, and you see where this says transpose. This is how you pitch something down. So if you go to 0, this is the original pitch. Okay, but I just went ahead. I usually, when I want to make something, pitch down, chopped and screwed style, or however you want to call it, I usually start with, -7, and if it sounds too deep, I'll go up. But yeah, that was how we got that. I just, I had the acapella from an acapella pack that I had downloaded. It was there. I just chopped it up. It wound up fitting. It was really easy. And when you listen to the track, now we're starting to get that feel. See, so now because he was using the vocoder and whatnot, now it's kind of sounds like a creepy robot. And the original words were "you belong to the city," but now where I chopped it, it kind of sounds like "you belong to us." So that's just a creepy thing to say. Period. And that's another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're chopping samples, is you don't necessarily have to get something that's a phrase or something that makes sense, or even think that when you chop something it's going to wind up sounding like that, because you'll hear the way that I have this in the mix and the instruments is you're not even really going to so much understand what he's saying. It's more of a feeling. Now, next thing that you want to do when you're building a track like this is you want to start your melody. You want to pick a sound that's really different. I personally shop for VSTs with sounds that already come very different. This is a really cool VST. It's called Rev by Output, and what it is, it's a whole bunch of playable instruments that are samples in reverse. So I just I was just scrolling through the presets. I didn't make anything custom in this library, and I came up with this simple melody, and it sounded like this. Now, as I was, as I went through, my little musical journey, figuring out how to play and make melodies and stuff, I found out that the movement in the melody that I really liked is when a note went up a half step. I found that sounded, it had more tension, it was more epic, and that when you skipped a note and you went up a whole step, that sounds more happy, but this sounds more menacing. So when I build my melodies, this is a little melody tip for you guys. When I build my melodies, I try to use that movement as much as possible. And when you're in the minor scale, that means going from the second note to the third and the fifth to the sixth and vice versa as much as possible. And if you see my melody, that's exactly what I've done. Let's listen to what it sounds like one more time. Now, for these slower beats, you want to kind of space out your melody. You don't want to use, the basic, 4-note for every bar melody. I mean, you can, but what makes them kind of creepy and trippy is the space that you leave behind. We're gonna add those other notes in, but we're gonna do it on another instrument, which leads me to the next point, and that's our counter melody. It sounds like this. Now this particular style of beat, it has its strange, creepy sounds, and then it comes back with hard synths, and that's how it kind of keeps that gritty urban vibe, right? So the way that I had made this melody, right, is I went and I used in FL Studio, they have this feature called it's called Ghost Channels, and it basically, what it does is it lets you see what you've already recorded, and then still program new MIDI notes. So I remember I was watching FL Studio tutorials, and I really like that feature. I figured out how to do it in Studio One. All you have to do is in the arrange window is you find the first MIDI region that you want to see, that you kind of want to build off of. Then the new one that you want to use, you just highlight it, or you press shift and click on it, and then it'll bring it up. The most important thing to remember is when you're doing this method is the last region that you click that's going to be the one that you use, or that's going to be the one that when you draw on the piano roll, it's going to write to. In order to make it a little easier for myself when I'm doing this, I'll change this to a different color so I don't get confused on what notes are what. So the first whenever I'm writing a counter melody, the first thing that I do is I just kind of start with a couple bars, and I'll see where my space is, where I don't have notes on my original melody, and I'll start like an octave up, okay, and I'll start with my root note. In this case, it's a D. And then I'll see, okay, I didn't play a note on this step, and I didn't play a note on this step. Let me just add those in. And if you see, this is my same movement, that half step movement, just going up, one note, but it's further spaced out. So then I listen to this sound and I see what I get. right now I'm just listening. I'm making sure nothing's really clashing. So I'm saying, okay, that's that's cool. It's working. Um, nothing's really clashing or sounding out of key or anything like that. So then I heard, then I was like, I need a I need a little bit more movement right in this area. So I thought maybe I'll go down again, listen to what that sounds like. That was too close, so I did this. So then once I had that, I was like, okay, that's cool. That's really simple. What happens if I say, turn it into 16 notes? What will it sound like then? So then I spaced them out. Then I was like, all right, what does it sound like now? So that's a little trick, how to slowly build a counter melody, because you hear now you've got some more movement. You can build a track around a slow melody and that's fine, but if you want to build a counter melody, typically something that you want to keep in mind is that it's either going to be a little bit quicker or a little bit slower than the first melody that you lay down, and it's just going to kind of accent what is what's missing about the first melody, and it'll connect some for lack of a better term, it'll connect some musical dots. So, and if you have a really slow melody, you want to make sure that you write a really nice catchy counter melody, because it's going to help out with the arrangement of the track. So this is what we wound up having. Good stuff. This next part isn't a must, but I chose to do it for my taste. I went and got a really nice piano VST. No, not really. I used Nexus, just something really simple. And I just played a low bass line, like a typical trap beat. That way the track would have a little bit of body. It wouldn't sound so thin, and would have some familiarity. This is what it sounds like. I use a stock Studio One tri-comp to kind of bring out the sustain of the piano. It makes it nice and grungy. This is a really good stock plugin, by the way, for for smashing the crap out of things. This is really nice. So then once I had that, that's pretty much the track. I wanted to I didn't really have a lot in terms of the hook. I wanted to add some energy into the hook, so what I did was I added a simple arpeggio. This is what it sounds like. I've got the Stone Phaser from Guitar Rig on it. That always makes everything sound trippy, and then a spring verb underneath that, and all this is I played a simple 1-6-5 chord progression. The the bottom two notes are inverted. That way that way you get a nice solid movement. It doesn't go up real high, so it doesn't sound too happy. And what I mean by that is, these chords originally look like this. If you watch my other chord videos, it's the 1 3 5 1 3 5. But when you do your basic triads like that and you don't invert them, you wind up, as you go up in the scale, you wind up with this really happy sound. And the happy isn't really trappy. This is what it sounds like before. Like it sounds nice. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's not for this song. So if you're making your chords, if you want to make them sound darker, just take your top two notes, press shift down arrow, drop them back down, and you'll get this. This ARP inside Nexus, it's not even an ARP. I just needed, it wasn't so much like the ARP isn't a big deal. It was just having it in here and having the movement. So I wasn't really, crazy about the sound. I just picked a basic sound, went into the ARP section, selected downward movement, just turned it on, only needed 1 octave, had it moving at 16th notes. I adjusted the strum just a little bit, and then I customized, these two notes here so that they would hold. That way it's just so that it wasn't basic. Just wanted to, those little customization tips are things that you do inside your VSTs. It's gonna make you sound different, even if they're just little things like that. So when you add it all together in the beat, you wind up with this. So yeah, the whole point was just to add like this little frantic energy. It wasn't to make, the ARP this superstar of the beat, just to let people know that, the energy is going up. And what do you do after you bring the energy up? When you're making an arrangement, you take it back down. So for the first part of the beat, like I always do on a trap beat, first few bars, I get rid of the hi-hats and go into my automation, program a bass mute at the last snare. That way you can get a little drop and put in your trusty snare roll. So this is what this sounded like. Now, remember how I was doing the pitch modulation for the hi-hat? I did something similar with the snare roll just to give it, that flavor. You hear a lot of that in these Wondagurl beats. So, that's how they're getting that pitch variation. It's not by stepping up in the piano roll, although that's a method you can use, but that's more like an old school, like Dirty South UGK organs and blues guitar type vibe. This is more automating the actual pitch of the sample. So you want to make sure that when you're doing these, you're not using impact. You're putting a separate snare inside a sample 1, changing your pitch bend range to 12, and then programming, manually programming your pitch bends, recording them with your pitch wheel. So, that first section, remove the counter melody, remove the hi-hat, you get a more open space. Then we move into a section, the next 4 bars of the beat, where I bring the counter melody back and I play all the parts in full, and it winds up sounding like this. Now, if you catch that little part at the end on the drums and you pay attention to my automation lanes, I have a new plugin that I was messing with on my filter bus. I'm sorry, it's on my drum bus. It's called it's from GVST. These people have like a ton of, you know, quality free plugins. You know, so if you're looking for effects, you know, go there and, you know, load up the GUIs. You know, the user interfaces, they aren't extremely sexy, but what they do is they work. So when you listen to my drum track after I've enabled this plugin, it sounds like this. You know, and that was just a little something to break up the monotony, because the one thing is, you know, what I was telling you all earlier about this speed of beat, and once you start getting into the slower beats, you really need to pay more attention to your arrangement, because you can't just loop 16 bars and 8 bars and think that shit is going to keep someone's attention, because these beats are moving so slow. You know, you got to put in automation, you got to put in drops, you got to put in, you know, little snare rolls and switch up the drums. That's why you got to have a great counter melody, so you could start with the melody, then bring in the counter melody, and then my next easy arrangement tip is for the third 4 bars is you go ahead and switch in between your counter melody and your main melody. And this does a little trick with the ear, because, you know, the ear is trying to figure out the next note. It's how your mind works. You know, once you start playing a musical pattern, your ear's trying to connect the dots. So if you play them this first melody here, and then you bring in a counter melody, you know, now your ear is processing information, and your brain is expecting to hear both of these pop up on this next 4-bar section, but you just give them the counter melody, you know, then your brain's going to start wondering, all right, where's this part? Then this part pops in, but without this part, then your mind's wondering, dude, where the hell's that counter melody? And you give that to them, and you give that to them twice. You know, scientifically and psychologically, the mind is trying to figure that out, but, you know, the real world version of that is you've just created interest in that person. And it's a psychological trick that you use inside music, and people won't even understand what's happening to them. You know, this might sound like bullshit when I'm telling you this, but trust me, this little trick right here is a very powerful trick to create interest in someone's mind. It's almost like hypnotism, because everybody's ear works the same in this capacity, and they're going to be trying to figure out where are these sounds. And that's why you don't want to do it for, you know, too long. But just 4 bars, and it works out. So this is what you get when you use that trick. So another method that I use when I'm doing this trick is for the parts where I have you know, the counter melody or whatever's going on. The first part, I'll keep the hi-hats in, and then when the second melody comes in, I'll take the hi-hats out. So that also adds a tension and release. Listen again. Now, if you notice at the end, I added another drop. I like to put bass drops every other 4 bars. It's another up and down, tension and release, push pull relationship that is really simple, but very effective for these slower beats. Now, really the last part of these Wondagurl type of tracks is you want to have a pre-hook before the hook, and it's just a piece of music that is different from the patterns in the verse and the hook, you know. And what this is the last thing that is really going to help you create interest, because okay, you went and you used the back and forth psychological technique here, so your ear is going to be expecting to return to this pattern. But if you really want to turn it up and take it to the max, is you give them something completely different. So pay attention, you know, just pay attention to how you feel when you hear this next piece of music. So you know, you see how it kind of takes you to a different space. It's almost like it takes you to a similar room in the house, but the walls are a different color. And the way that you get that feeling is you just, you know, you go ahead and you write a different melody with the same instruments, but you just, you know, you write a different melody. Like this one, I went ahead and did a 4-note trap feel. And then my counter melody, instead of making it move, I slowed it down and made it much slower. So, you know, you go from making this person's mind trying to figure out, okay, when's the counter melody coming back, when's the real melody coming back, when's the counter melody coming back. Then all of a sudden you put more notes in the main melody when they were used to hearing a more sparse melody on the main melody. And then you take and you make your counter melody, which was the busy melody, a more relaxed melody. You get rid of your 808s, and you put a simple sub bass in. You know, that's what I did here. That's this sound. And then I added that square bass on top of it to give it a distorted sound. Okay, easy stuff. We'll play it again. Last part of the technique is instead of using my regular snare, I slowed down my kicks, made them more sparse, added those fast rolls that I was showing you before, and I used this clap. That way, you know, it's similar, but everything is changing, you know, but it's not such a big change where it sounds like a completely different beat. And it makes it so that when you finally do hear the hook again, you have a sense of relief. You're like, oh, thank you. There it is. It's back. Here's something familiar. And that sense of relief when you're doing urban music, that's the turn up. You know what I mean? That's where you get hype. It's not so much that you're relieved and you know, and you're like, oh my God, my brain can finally rest. I was on all these puzzles. What that translates into is all right, now it's time to get hyped. Now it's time to dance that much harder. So let's go ahead and listen to we'll go ahead and listen from the beginning of the verse to the hook, and I want you to really pay attention to how you feel when you hear this music. See, so these tracks, they're not so much difficult to make in the writing of the melodies or the finding of the sounds. This is a very arrangement driven type of vibe, and the thing that you want to take away from what we did today is you want to take away that you need to create tension and release, and you can use that in every type of beat that you make. You want to add things, you want to take things away, you know what I mean? Like you want to make your basic skeleton and then just leave it at that, and then just start taking things away. See what is the least amount of parts of the song you can get away with playing and it's still sounding good, and make that a 4-bar section, and then put them all and see how many you could pack into a section and make that a 4-bar section, and then see what the second least part of how many parts you could put in, and the third least, and see where you could go back and forth between two different melodies and make that a section. Because if you look at mine, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 different patterns. And if you're going to do a beat that's this slow, like 126 or slower, you're gonna need that many different patterns, at least, to keep someone's attention. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a really slow ass beat. So anyhow, that's how to get the Wondagurl vibe. This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions. If you learned anything today and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Press like on the video. It doesn't take but 1 second to click that box. That really helps the channel out and getting these videos out to the other Studio One producers out there. Go ahead and add my people in the comments up. They're really cool. Drop me a comment if you want to see anything, if you're having trouble with Studio One or any native instruments plugins. But appreciate you guys a lot, and I'll see you on the next one.